Some voices shake the world, but hers didn't even escape her lips. For most of her life, Maya lived in silence, not because she wanted to, but because speaking felt like a battle she could never win. Every word was a war, every conversation a minefield she had learned to avoid. In a world that never stops talking, Maya had become invisible. By the time she reached adulthood, she had mastered everything except the sound of her own voice. College classrooms became torture chambers, job interviews, impossible dreams. Even ordering coffee felt like standing on a stage naked, waiting for judgment. Her stutter wasn't just a speech impediment, it was a prison. Each attempted word died in her throat before it could reach the light. So she learned to survive in the margins, working night shifts where silence was expected, eating alone where conversation wasn't required, living small so the world wouldn't notice her struggling. The people who loved her most looked at her with pity. Her younger sister talked effortlessly, while Maya sat frozen, watching life happen to everyone else. Her parents' worried glances said what their words tried to hide. They had given up hope she'd ever find her voice. And Maya? She had given up too. Late at night, locked in a bathroom stall, she would cry without making a sound, because even her pain had learned to be silent. But something happened in that silence, something the world couldn't see. Alone in her small apartment, Maya discovered a secret. When no one was watching, when no one was judging, her voice didn't shake. Surrounded by vinyl records of history's greatest speakers, she began to practice. Not for applause, not for recognition, simply because she needed to know. Could she ever sound like them? Night after night, while the city slept, Maya waged war with herself. She studied phonetics like a soldier studies combat. She recorded herself hundreds of times, deleting every failed attempt. Her apartment became a laboratory, her voice the experiment. 300 days, 7,200 hours. She spoke to no one and became everyone she wanted to be. The old cassette recorder became her only witness, the microphone her only friend. And slowly, impossibly, the voice she heard played back wasn't the voice of the broken girl from the bathroom stall. It was someone else, someone stronger, someone who sounded like they believed every word they said. So, she made a decision. If her voice couldn't reach one person face to face, maybe it could reach 1,000 people she'd never have to see. She wrote a simple message, 30 seconds of vulnerability recorded in her apartment at 3 in the morning, no script, no polish, just truth. If you're listening to this, you feel broken. I know. I've lived there my whole life. But maybe broken things can still make the most beautiful sounds. She uploaded it anonymously to a motivational platform. Then she closed her laptop exhausted and slept for the first time in weeks. When she woke up, her phone wouldn't stop vibrating. 500,000 plays. By noon, 10 million. By sunset, 30 million people had heard the voice that couldn't order coffee without trembling. The comments poured in like rain. Who is this? This voice saved my life. Please speak again. The woman who struggled to speak to one person had just spoken to millions. Media outlets called her the mystery voice, the anonymous angel. Podcasts analyzed her words. News anchors speculated about her identity. Everyone wanted to know Who was the person behind the voice that moved mountains? But Maya still saw herself as the girl in the bathroom stall. So when the Global Summit on Mental Health invited her to keynote their conference, in person, in front of 5,000 people, she almost said no. Almost. Because somewhere between that first recording and this invitation, Maya had learned something crucial. The voice that people heard wasn't the voice she gave them. It was the voice she earned. Every failed recording, every lonely practice session, every tear shed in silence, they had all been building toward this moment. The night before the summit, Maya stood in front of a hotel mirror practicing. Her hands still shook, her throat still tightened. But now she knew something the old Maya didn't know. Fear doesn't need to be conquered. It just needs to be spoken. When she walked onto that stage, 5,000 people fell silent. Not because they knew who she was, but because they could feel the weight of what was about to happen. Maya gripped the podium. The spotlight was blinding. Her heart hammered against her ribs like it wanted to escape. And when she opened her mouth, the first word came out broken. My name is Maya Chen. Someone in the crowd shouted, "We hear you now!" And something inside her cracked open. Not breaking, blooming. And for most of my life, I had no voice. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I was terrified of the sound. I spent 22 years believing my silence protected me. It didn't. It just made me smaller. So I stopped waiting to be ready and started speaking anyway. Her voice still shook. She still stuttered, but she kept going because for the first time she understood. The power wasn't in the perfection. It was in the courage to speak imperfectly. When she finished, the auditorium exploded. 5,000 people rose to their feet, not because her speech was flawless, but because it was real. Maya stood there, tears streaming down her face, one hand covering her mouth in disbelief. The girl who couldn't speak had just moved thousands with her words. 1 year later, Maya Chen speaks at conferences around the world. She hosts a podcast that reaches millions. She wrote a book called The Silent Voice that sits on bestseller lists. Schools invite her, companies hire her. Young people who struggle with their own silence write to her every day. But when people ask her when she found her voice, she always gives the same answer. I didn't find it. It was always there. I just had to stop listening to the world telling me I had nothing worth saying and start listening to the silence that was screaming to be heard. Because sometimes the most powerful voice in the room is the one that took the longest to speak. And sometimes silence isn't weakness at all. It's just a voice learning to roar.